Welcome to Quick and Early Miracles. Today I will be talking about shadow work, and instead of calling it shadow work, I'm going to call it whole work because it's a part of this whole system with the light, hey Grit, with the light, who you are, who you think you are rather, and your shadow. And why would you want to do shadow work? Why would you want to make the unconscious conscious? Why would you want to see the sun behind the clouds? It's the same as reclaiming misplaced power and taking things out of your experience that hurt. I will show you a 4-step protocol to get at it. And we're going to take a few breaths. This is actually my third take. I don't know, I can't catch the fire today. Okay, so with shadow work, essentially what you're doing is acknowledging where you're causing your own problems. So I have this adorable little dinosaur here, and he has that fat ass tail. And sometimes he's not aware of what his fat ass tail is doing. Sometimes it knocks over what he's working on. He'll be in the kitchen. He'll turn around really fast. He'll knock over his pancake batter. He'll say, "Ghosts, is that you? Mom, are you playing with the pancakes?" And he gets really upset. He doesn't realize he's knocking over his own stuff. Similarly, he might go places and knock over things at other people's houses. They don't invite him over, and he doesn't understand. That is the value of shadow work. It's seeing where you're knocking over your own stuff or other people's stuff, and you come to have a better sense of self, a better idea of who you are and how you take up space and use space and interact so that you aren't causing problems for yourself or others. I am, so consciousness, awareness is the same as saying I am. It is knowing who you are in truth. Around that dot of I am, I have 2 slidey bars. They both go to the left. The pink bar moves out of center. It abdicates its power. The red bar moves towards the center, over the center, and takes the pink side. Abdicates? It takes power. And so both are out of balance. I am is where one is aware of who and what you are. So, what's interesting about things is it's never the thing, it's your relationship to the thing. And so, in this example, when you're giving up power, it's not necessarily like, okay, you drive this time, or like you pick the restaurant. It's more like, what are you doing and why? Are you abdicating that power so that they like you, or you're afraid to assert yourself? That is a denial of I am. That's coming out of the center of truth. Or are you offering those things out of joy or pleasure to see where they're coming from or what they would do? It's a different experience. And so in the shadow, what we're unconscious of doing, what we're unconscious of being, is that I am center. And so we misplace our power, and usually that causes some level of discomfort. Ouch. You can do that. You can notice when you're running into your subconscious or your shadow, because it generally feels uncomfortable. You might run into your unconscious and another person. They might do things that you think are real shitty. Little do you know, you do likely do the same things, or they're mirroring you directly, or you've learned to adapt, or you have a belief or an expectation that you need to adapt to that type of behavior. And so you are unconsciously giving up your power to accommodate who or where they are, rather than standing in the truth of who you are. You can also notice when you hit your subconscious as far as beliefs go. So, what's so wild about the mind, I was working with someone this week and telling them about, we were doing this, sometimes I have people like Google search their heads, and we pull out what different concepts, beliefs, or fears are stored as for them. You would it's pretty interesting exercise to see what you really think of things. But once we surface that, then we'll shake it out for like, well, what is it really? What could it be for me? And what we were looking at for him was hard work. And what's so interesting about it is he associates hard work with results. And it's not that that's not true, but it's likely that he gets great results other places as well without hard work. And so the belief that good results require hard work is only evidenced in the areas where he consciously thinks, he consciously recognizes what he's doing as work. Relationships could be thought of as work, but he might be generating great results there without hard work because he doesn't call it by the same name. And so these ways we use language to slice and dice our experience can create these sort of strange mazes and frameworks and limits that contain our expression. Well, we can't because of this, or that doesn't work because of this, or I can't because, when really it's just a learned limit and likely an application of an idea, which again is just a combination of words. And you can use words just a bunch of different ways to free yourself. I was on Dr. Dwayne Hartman's podcast a couple times recently, and he has a background in neuro-linguistic programming as well. And I'm not formally trained, but I have been coaching for a minute and studied it myself on my own. And language is so fascinating as far as it creating our experience. With this idea of the dinosaur with the tail you don't see. It's crazy. It's so crazy. Listen to yourself and other people when they talk about who they are. They usually don't see their other half. And so if someone leads with, I'm honest, if somebody leads with, I'm a hard worker, if someone leads with a statement like that, they're expressing it towards you, they likely have a fat ass tail that's the opposite of that. But because of how they're using language and evidencing or bringing into their awareness what's there, they don't notice that they're not consistent with that claim. They have no idea. I know someone who, is very much like, it's important to be open and honest. It's important to be open and honest. A big part of their tail is not. And they're not actively thinking like, let me fool these people into thinking I'm open and honest. It's just that the language, the way that it's cutting, slicing, and dicing experience doesn't, they're not conscious of where they're not honest. That's their shadow, and it causes a lot of problems. But because they're not there, their witness, their consciousness, the light of seeing and the light of awareness, they don't know. And that's really what shadow work is when you kind of ask these questions about what don't you see about yourself, so that you can kind of fold the light into the human with the shadow and become one. And so you're more conscious of how you're interacting with life, and the results that you're generating make more sense. Other things that you might have in your subconscious are beliefs about money, beliefs about health, fitness, etc. And those are unconscious, and they're likely embroiled with emotion or pain or fear or something. And as such, they're not allowed to be in the light of awareness. And so you have a hard time generating results there because you can't really see. And with topics like that, we can hold them out of our awareness if we perceive that the interaction with them or the witnessing of them will make us doubt our self-worth. And so some things are held out of awareness because if we saw them, maybe we wouldn't think that we're good enough for love anymore. And so our psyche is always sort of organizing itself away from the shadow so it still thinks it's good enough. Stalking self until answers appear. Yes, stalk yourself till you see it. This is what you do when you notice that there's something outside. You find some shadow aspects. And I was trying to come up with a fun way to say it, and I came up with, so. And the first aspect, or the first step, is to surrender. Let it be true. Surrender. The next one is accept. Okay, I take this on. Own. That's the same as saying, this is mine. Like, I'm not going to push this off on anyone or anything else. With beliefs, with the tail, with the subconscious, the shadow, we're usually thinking it's a function of something outside. We could call it, Carl Jung calls it fate. We could think it's the placing of blame and responsibility. It's that misplaced power. We're not realizing we're creating through our own beliefs and our own actions because we're doing it subconsciously. So when you own that power, it's the same as bringing it home. And then letting grow, it's the same as like letting go, letting flow. And it's basically like things are going to be different. When you bring home that power, it's the same as responsibility. And freedom. And so when you bring it back, things are going to change. So sometimes things are withheld from consciousness, our consciousness. They're kept in the shadow because we're afraid that in having that there, we'll have to do something scary or new. And what if we fail? And so it's easier to keep that power placed. I'm stuck here because of you. I'm stuck here because of that. Rather than recognizing that you have the power to grow forward, to move forward. And in so doing, you might be taking a risk that would put you, maybe you'll break your heart again. Maybe you'll fail, whatever. And so it's easier to misplace that power than to step into it. If that's you, if you think that might be you, always start with self-love. Self-love is saying, that's okay, baby. It's okay you're that way. It doesn't matter. It's okay. If you notice aspects of yourself that you're denying or aspects of yourself that you're not managing the whole way or that you don't feel like you're in your power, if you make you feel bad about it, it ain't going to fix it. It ain't going to bring it home. The only way to really come into this is through this process. This is love. This is self-love. This is saying like, I see, I accept, this is me. I allow life in it. That's self-love. That's what self-love is. And so when you accept what you can't accept, you say, I accept I can't accept this. I accept that I'm not willing to change. It's this. It's self-love. You're doing the same thing. And eventually, the same result is generated. So you don't need to push yourself here. You don't need to make yourself feel bad. In fact, I would suggest that you don't. And that's it. That's all I got for today. So I want to go back to this one. So with shadow work, wholeness work, remember what we're looking for is where you're giving up your sense of I am, which is like, this is me as a spark of divinity. This is the truth of who I am. And you're giving it up by taking somebody else's, or you're giving it up by giving up yours. In either case, it feels, you're like, if you're trying to, let's say you're withholding information from somebody, or you're giving them information in like a way that doesn't upset them so that you can get love from them or get acceptance from them, you're not standing in love and acceptance because you're trying to get it. And let's say that you as a person don't really want to give it to them, and yet you feel like you don't want to upset them, or you need them to protect you or whatever, and so you give it up and you say, I'm not loved, I'm not safe, which is the same as surrendering I am. And so when you're doing the shadow work, it's calling to mind these dynamics that put you out of balance. It's claiming your misplaced power. And it's not generating power, it's not making power, it's claiming what is already yours. When you give, like when someone else has power over you, you have given it to them. You've given it to them. And so when they have power over you, it's your own. So you can take it back. In this work, we're making shadow work again. It's not like, evil is a concept I was curious about for a good chunk of the last 2 years. And it's just not being able to see. It's just darkness. Darkness is only the absence of light, isn't something in and of itself. Evil is when people behave in a way that they can't see what they're doing, they don't really get it. And so, in making, sometimes you can communicate with someone and say, hey, you're hitting me with your tail, and this is why it hurts. Here's what you could do instead. And they'll hear you. And sometimes they're not willing to take in, or not ready to, or able to take in that information yet. In that instance, all you can do is stop inviting them over if they're not conscious of what they're doing, and if you've done your best to very lovingly say, I don't think you know you're doing this. And this is like that loving, I don't think you know you're doing this is so important, because they don't. If they knew, they wouldn't, like if they really knew what they were doing, they wouldn't. That is what makes it unconscious. That is what makes it dark. That's what makes it shadow. And so that's true of yourself as well. And so this sequence, Quick and Early Miracles, I've talked a lot about self-forgiveness. And that's recognizing, like, you've probably done some stupid shit with your fat ass tail, but that's okay. You didn't know better. And now, you go through this process of surrendering and accepting that that's what was done, owning that you have that power, and letting your behavior shift to take it into consideration. To remember that when you're backing that up, you might back up into something because you have this other side. Where was I running? Oh yeah, I was saying with like evil or darkness or people behaving badly towards each other, again, it's likely they can't see. If they could really see what they were doing, they wouldn't. And that's true at like a humanity level, because as far as I can tell, we're all cells in the same body. We're all pieces. Humanity is one body, including like the globe and all the stuff. Like, it's all just one. And so if this hand is giving shit to this hand, it hurts the body of which this hand is a part. And so this hand is essentially hurting itself. When you hurt the body, you hurt yourself. And that, I think, is what we're looking at as far as, this expansion of consciousness, ascension, etc., like this rise in awareness. We're coming to see like, oh man, hey buddy, we're neighbors. Like, what the health of your family affects the health of my family, because we're just in this one closed system. And that concludes my presentation today. If you came to my first couple of false starts, thank you for rejoining this one. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts, or feelings before I close today? All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.